In today's video, I am going to be breaking down some simple basketball plays that you could run with pretty much any youth basketball team. These are very simple and can be ran very similar and easily with many different age groups as well. So let's get down, let's check these out. I really like these plays myself. So this first play is actually a box offense, and you could generally run this against a man-to-man defense if you're with really young players. It's actually very simple. All you're doing is setting a screen down with your big men starting in the high post. You really want the big men to start up high because when they set these pin down screens, player 2 and 3 will be popping out towards the wings. When this happens, what we are actually hoping to have happen is for player 5, we want him to have a nice strong screen as same as player 4 so that these main defenders of theirs will actually be forced to switch off. Now this is actually very beneficial if this was to happen, because what we will have is now a mismatch in the low post. We will also have a mismatch out on the perimeter. Let me explain. When we get that ball passed out towards the wing, if there was a switch, in general, player 5 and player 4 are the two biggest players on the other team, and players 3 and 2 are generally going to be on our team much faster, maybe a little bit shorter. So we have a couple of different options. We can have player 3 attack player 5, and of course our man would then clear out because that would then be a one-on-one isolation situation. However, we don't necessarily always want that to happen. Whichever side that ball gets passed to, we would have player 2 pop out. However, we could also pass that ball into the low post, where now, again, tall man on short man, very simple, easy baskets. And we can actually do this with multiple different offenses as well. We could actually run this as a 5-out as well, where we would have the big men setting screens down towards the shorter guards and shorter forward, where now player 3 and 2 can pop out towards the wings, again, forcing, hopefully, a possible mismatch where now they've switched. We now have, let's say player 2 didn't switch, we can have that pass go over to player 3. Player 4 again would clear out, and we would have player 5 trying to post up his man in the low post. We can run this with a horns offense as well, but we can run this against zones too. Definitely go check out my 5-out complete guide down in the description below, because that will give you a lot of easy offenses and also more advanced offenses that you could literally build a whole basketball program around, as I am right now. And let's say we were going up against a 2-3 zone, just as an example. When you have a 5-out offense, you're most likely going to be having these wing defenders to move up, and player 5 will be guarding the whole entire, that's too big, the whole entire post or paint. What we would then have here is player 5 and 4 setting screens to these players here, and if that's the case, we would then have player 3 and 2 still popping up. However, we want that ball to go into the high post. We're obviously going to be having player 4 going to fight through to try and defend that, because of course in a 2-3 zone, to understand how to beat it, in a 2-3 zone, the zones look like this, which means that any of these areas where the zones overlap, you will generally have a double team on that side. You'll have the players shift over just like this, and you'll have again a double team if of course the defense is playing the way they should. So if this is the case, we can then have player 4 roll to the basket, and then we would have player 5 after that pin down coming across to the high post to overload that side, in which case, again, this is essentially just the exact same play. We're just moving players 4 and 5 just slightly differently. And player 2 could pass the player 5 for the shot, or that could draw up player 5 red, which could be an open layup for player 4 blue before, of course, that defender gets down to try and defend it. Of course, we could also have player 5 kick the ball out to this side for a 3 if your team can shoot 3s, depending on how young your players really are. The most craziest thing is these box plays can be really used with multiple different options. Again, we can still set these pin down screens. However, now we can have player 3 cut across the key, could be open for a mid-range shot, with player 2 kicking or popping out to the free throw line extended, where instead player 1 could of course pass player 2 the ball for a 3 or kick that ball in, and that could really collapse the defense, where again we can kick that ball out. Now this is a lot more cluttered in a box offense. I'm going to tell you right now, this really only works for grade 8 and under. However, we could run the same exact play, setting those pin down screens again in that 5-out offense, where player 2 could either cut towards the rim and have player 3 pop, or player 2 could pop and player 3 could cut towards the basket. Where now, if that's the case, again, we have a potential open layup for player 3 or mid-range shot, or again, we could have that same 3-point shot taken by player 2. We can even run this same exact play in a Horns offense. We would just have these screens coming from the high post instead of the wing. It's the exact same play. Literally the exact same, where these players can then pop down and again do the exact same thing. Maybe 3 will cut across this time, like I was mentioning in this second play, where now we have multiple different options. It's literally the same play, but it's all about even player 3 reading the defense as well. We can teach our team not just to say play 1, play 2. We can actually say these are the different options for these players coming off of these screens. Depends on what your defender is doing. I really like the high 1-4 offense with younger players as well. There's actually a good reason behind this, because the high 1-4 is a fantastic offense because it can be really simplified, but it can actually destroy zone defenses terribly. And what I mean by that is we can have screens out from players 5 and 4, and when we set these screens, we can have player 3 go across the top to do a high cut and player 2 doing a low cut. When this happens, or backdoor cut, I mean. Anyways, when this happens, player 1 can make the decision to pass to player 3 for a mid-range shot or a high to low pass, or player 1 can set up an alley-oop if it's an older team to player 2. And we've actually seen the Toronto Raptors, when DeMar DeRozan was playing for the team, actually ran this same play where Kyle Lowry would actually dribble slightly towards this side. Player 3 would actually pop up to the wing, not across the key, and we would have DeMar DeRozan actually cut back door. And this was almost a guaranteed alley-oop almost every single time they called it. Now, the reason why this is such a deadly offense against a zone is because obviously 1 and 2 are going to be most likely trapping up top, and we're going to have players 4 and 5 set those screens. However, now it's going to be slightly different because we're going to be having player 2 still cutting baseline, but we're going to be having player 3 cutting across the top. Why this is slightly different is because we really want that ball to go to the high post. This is imperative to have happen. Now, that's going to draw up player 5, or we may be having player 5 playing in between players 3 and 5, in which case we could have player 4 roll towards the basket, or with player 2 cutting towards the basket, this could be an easy layup for either 4 or 2, whoever player 3 wants to pass to, or he could obviously just shoot that basketball himself. Another great play that you could run doesn't even consist of any screens. Against a 2-3 zone, same idea, high 1-4 offense, player 2 and 3 will go down towards the corners, and we want that ball to go into that high post. Let's say, for example, player 5 gets that ball. Most likely player 5 red will move up. Players 4 and 3 will be most likely closing in on the key so that there's no drives from player 5. But we're also going to be having, as soon as that pass goes to player 5, we're going to be having player 4 cut to the basket, hoping that he should be open for a layup. This should, if not open for a layup, one or both of players 3 and 4 will collapse on player 4. If that happens, if one or both of those players do that, player 4 can stop, kick that ball out for an easy 3. That's why we moved these players from the wing to the corner, because they're going to get open threes. If only one of these players collapsed, let's say player 4 red collapsed, player 5 is going to be moving down as well, 2 is going to be moving down, 1 is going to be trying to figure out what to do, because if that pass goes out to here, then that's going to be an open 3 unless player 1 gets to it in time, in which case we would then have 1 move over, extra pass 3, but that's just adding extra passes, and at this point it's just reading the defense and trying to find the open man. We have to have our players think for themselves, but at the same time, this is just a simple high to low post pass. If collapsed, kick out. That's essentially the only thing that there is to this play. Now, by far my favorite play of all time when it comes to the 5-out offense is in zone offense, because of course every team these days runs a zone. Other than Salt Fleet, who played against my junior team, they ran a man-to-man at first, or they ran a full court press, they switched to a man-to-man at first. I was able to expose their center with my center, and they had to hide into a 2-3 zone, and we started to actually eat away at their lead most of the time by running this play against their zone. And what we did is just a simple 5-out offense, and again, you can get my 5-out complete guide down in the description below, but we would have player 5 and 4 cut to the high post, and at the exact same time have players 3 and 2 cut down towards the corners. I've explained this play a few different times, but what you will have is now 2 different options. Player 1 can either pass to player 4 or 5. When this happens, we're going to most likely usually see player 5 move up and player 3 move down. Player 4 is going to be covering there. We can also see player 1 move down as well from there. However, as soon as that pass goes to player 4, we want to see player 5 cut to the rim. This is going to be a quick high to low post pass for a layup. Now, when this happens, usually what you will see is either player 3 will try and defend player 5, and that'll be a kick out for a wide open 3. Another option that we see is player 4 will move in, again, kick out for a 3. If we see player 3 move up and player 4 still has the ball, one thing that actually worked a lot for us on the senior varsity team was player 2 cut to the basket if player 3 was guarding 5 tight, and this was an alley-oop that worked really well for my best player on the team. Mind you, that player could dunk, and he can jump extremely high, so that just worked really well at the senior varsity level, but at the junior varsity level, or even younger, this play works extremely well, even with youth teams, because you don't have to worry about setting screens. It's just simple, quick offense. I hope that this video has helped you. If it has, hit that like button, subscribe. Make sure to go check out my 5-out complete guide down in the description below, and I'll see you guys again next time.